It's another day, another post-apocalypse. Well, let's see what Mad Max brought to the table. On the 1st of September 2015, Avalanche Studios and Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment released Mad Max on the PC, Xbox One, and the PS4. Here we have the Xbox One version.
His was a never-ending journey away from the phantoms of his past.
The story is in keeping with the overall look and feel of the Mad Max movies of past and present. Not saying it's a movie tie-in, as the story has nothing to do with the movie counterparts really. It's just set in the same world with all the elements that world has to offer. Barren wastelands, savages fighting over limited resources, etc.
Come with me. We mustn't be seen. I'll take you to the tabernacle, and when you see what I'm going to show you, you'll be shouting holy all day long.
The premise of the game is this. Max got into an altercation with the game's antagonist, Scarborough Scrotus. He loses his V8 Interceptor, then meets up with this hunchback mechanic named Chumbucket, who idolizes him for some reason and volunteers his services to create a new car for Max called the Magnum Opus. Also, Max, as his name suggests, has been deeply scarred by events leading up to the apocalypse and those that followed, and isn't exactly of the soundest mind, and is in search of the fabled land known as the Plains of Silence to calm his madness. The story is played out with great voice acting, appropriate scores, and overall audio. The visuals do a great job of pulling you into the despair that is the post-apocalypse. Everything from the mangled, mutated, butchered excuses for vehicles to the clearly disturbed, mentally and physically warped characters you meet. And the unpredictable weather that at any point will have you racing against an incoming sandstorm definitely does the job of convincing you that you're not in Kansas anymore.
If we don't weaken their numbers, why, it'll mean the end of you, me, and the Magnum Opus.
Gameplay-wise, I'll have to say Mad Max devs pretty much played it safe here, as they seem to have run down the checklist of all the high points expected from an open-world sandbox game and ticked every box. There's your leveling up system, which not only applies to Max, but to your car, which is constantly due for upgrades. The amount of vehicle customizations available to you could almost be considered overkill, and when you think character customization, the same applies. You have your regular upgrades that will help you out in combat, and then you have this mysterious stranger you meet called the Griffer, who acts as an abilities merchant. All these upgrade options will definitely keep you busy. You'll find that upgrading your car is just as important, as vehicular combat plays a huge role in the world of Mad Max. You do your best work from your vehicle actually. Sniping requires you to go to the back of the vehicle, set up your rifle, and take your shots from there. Chumbucket is always with you, so you have him control the car while you take shots. This is a manual process, but it works out a lot better than it sounds. This brings me to the controls. I found the controls a bit awkward at first. The default button placement seemed a bit off, and I would find myself firing my shotgun by accident sometimes, among other things, as I'm just not accustomed to this kind of layout. But after about an hour in, it starts to make perfect sense, especially during vehicular combat when using weapons like the harpoon gun, which I'm sure most of you will agree is one fine piece of artillery that you'll probably end up spamming throughout this lengthy campaign. The steering, however, for the Magnum Opus and other vehicles could be tighter. Even after modding and tweaking, I still experience some amount of lag in the controls. More on gameplay. This bothers me. Mad Max is one of those games that, although it's non-linear, it still has some of that set-in-stone vibe going on. Similar to, let's say, Uncharted games, you can climb to specific points that you'll see highlighted in yellow. This isn't so bad, but it seems this game requires a certain level of exactness when approaching this. And even though you have this jump button, it doesn't seem like much thought was put into it. You'll meet upon an area where, although you don't see the highlight, common sense tells you you should be able to go there, but no, they're not having it. This subtracts from the game's otherwise intuitive feel. But more on the lack of intuitiveness. You can't crouch. Why do I mention this? Well, this brings me to another element of Mad Max that really bothers me. Now, while devs and fans of the game might argue that this isn't that kind of game, I really think Mad Max should have some stealth elements to it. Just the way it feels when trying to infiltrate a base camp or stronghold. You really should be able to sneak up on people and take them down quietly. As I said before, Far Cry requires stealth. Executes it poorly, but that's still better than nothing, and that's exactly what we're given here in Mad Max where stealth is concerned. Nothing.
That's right.
Fighting mechanics. This is very similar to the Arkham games, only less spectacular. You can't zip from one end of the screen to the other, the way the Cape Crusader would. So you'll quickly get the drift that fighting is going to take a bit more thought and strategy. You don't have the utility belt filled with gadgets either, and you're certainly no martial arts master, just a regular guy who learned to brawl through hard times in the wastelands. I'm not going to criticize this style of fighting, as different franchises all have their own unique approach to this element. Some are somewhat original, while others copied a formula that worked from elsewhere. Some like the Dante's Inferno God of War style, some like the Bayonetta style, there's a Rise Son of Rome mechanic, and so on. Personally, I appreciate the simplified yet dynamic Arkham approach, so no complaints here. The overall pacing of the game is a mixed bag, and one could argue it's repetitive, but like I implied earlier, WB took the safe route. They did what they thought the masses would appreciate. Gave us all the regular suspects, so to speak, when it comes to open world games. So starting out, you'll feel right at home doing fetch quests and building your character's attributes, etc. What I appreciate here, that although it's generic, stuff like side quests actually feel relevant. When a stronghold leader asks you to help him fortify his base, in return for perks like free ammo and so on, you immediately feel the benefits of these quests and won't mind taking a break from the main campaign to do some of these.
We will deliver to you a bona fide grease pit! Ah, praise be the prophet!
Let him inside.
Other elements in the game of interest are the focus on survival. I appreciate how this was handled. You'll find the need to refuel your vehicle and maybe stock up on extra gas containers for the road, and also fill your water canteen on your perilous trek as well. And yeah, this is going to disturb some. You also eat maggots for nourishment. This, however, was not overdone and does not feel like a grind or a chore. It's not every 5 minutes you'll be out of gas or dehydrated. This goes back to the overall pace of the game. While driving around, you'll even see wanderers about to expire from lack of hydration. You can help them out with a drink of water for useful information in return. Before taking on an outpost, you can also speak with the recon scouts for even more valuable intel on said outpost. You also have these air balloons at your disposal that'll help you reveal more of the map. The load times here are a bit on the long side. Who am I kidding? They're really long. Guess that's what it takes to deliver such a huge game even on this current generation of consoles. I haven't played it on the PC, so maybe they're having an easier time with these load screens.
Sorry for that.
A few other thieves. If you picked up a melee weapon, you can't take it with you in a vehicle, which is kind of strange as you carry some pretty huge stuff otherwise, like the sniper rifle. Then this thing where you have to hold the A button down in order to pick something up. A simple tap of the A button would have sufficed, as in the middle of heated combat, the enemy isn't going to stand idly by while you take your sweet time to pick up a club or machete to butcher them and their colleagues. Other than the no stealth, the repetition, which works for some and not for others, as some people know what to expect coming into a game like this, the linear approach to certain movements and the useless jump button, and a few other peeves I mentioned, I'm gonna have to say Mad Max is a pretty decent game that'll be definitely worth your time. The lab gives Mad Max an 8 out of 10.
Desperate and capable. I think we can do business.